The other issue, and what you're going to see, is the geographic expansion. What we can see is from the 1960s, you're going to see the spread throughout the Americas. And what you see is the red here means that there's a large number of cases, and you can actually see it spreading throughout all of the different countries in Latin America. And this is actually not only in the Americas, but also in Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent. So we have a huge geographic spread. So this is the mosquito at the end of the day. But actually, it lays eggs. And these eggs grow, and they can actually be desiccated, and then they come back with presence of water. They actually can then emerge and become the larva that you saw. So this is called the larva, and this is its siphon here, and it's breathing the air. And what it'll do is it'll grow in clean water, especially these Aedes aegypti grows in clean water. And you can see, and actually it's cool because different species actually dance differently, but then they become pupa, and the pupa, you can see, will then split open on the back of the exoskeleton, and they will actually emerge into mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes will then land and will probe. And what you can see is now what happens to the virus as it enters the mosquito. So it's going to enter, and it's going to go into the midgut, and then it's going to start replicating. And it's actually going to go out through the midgut and then disseminate to the other body organs. But the most important is it going to the salivary glands, because then the salivary glands will then allow this mosquito to then deliver the virus back into the next person that it bites. Okay? So that's how it works. So before we get into the immune response, we're going to need to understand a little bit about how dengue actually infects a cell. And if we can roll this video, what you'll see is how dengue can actually approach a particular cell. This is, as we saw very nicely from Joe's lectures, what the dengue virus virion looks like, and the lipid bilayer underneath the proteins, the capsid, and then within the capsid, the RNA genome of the virus. And so this virion is floating in your bloodstream and will approach a cell, often what we call a myeloid cell, which is a monocyte or a macrophage of dendritic cell of the immune lineage, and will actually attach to, this is called the cognate receptor, and we'll talk later about a different type of receptor called an FC receptor. And what will happen is that there'll be an interaction, and this will, through what we call receptor-mediated endocytosis, the virion will enter into this endosome, which is a membranous vesicle. And what will happen is that there are pumps that will pump in protons and will lower the pH. And you can see this by a gradient of pink. And as the pH is lowered, there's a movement of those envelope proteins, which actually will completely transform the conformation, which will allow it to actually fuse with the endosomal membrane, fuse it with the virion membrane, and then allow the capsid and then within that the RNA genome to be delivered into the cytoplasm of the cell. And that will then establish infection. And so now in the next one, what I want to end this series with, or this lecture, is, so this is Israel Rodriguez. And so I spend a lot of time in Nicaragua, and these guys get to know me. And it turns out that they find out that I grew up in New York in like hip-hop era, and I love dancing. And so every year they would come up with a new reggaeton, which is like Latino hip-hop, on dengue for me. Okay, so this is my favorite, and I'm gonna show you because it's really cool. We added subtitles. So how many of you speak Spanish or understand Spanish? Que bien. Bueno, what you're going to see nonetheless is in English we have subtitles that are going to tell you, and it actually tells you what to do to get rid of the mosquito. It's really cool. So, hit it, Israel.
Nicaragua, el ciclo de vida de los clavitos tenemos que cortar, porque a los 8 días en pupa se convertirán y a los 11 en zancudo evolucionarán. Y si no tenés cuidado, el dengue te transmitirán.
I didn't ask for that. I just gave them a little money to make a CD, and this is what happened. So anyway, so you can see that it really is infectious. People get the idea, and then they have all different kinds of ways that, like, I certainly didn't dream